Yo. So I'm gonna just sit back here on this lovely Friday and really try to be transparent as I can to tell you how I came up with the money to purchase my 4 acres, purchase my container house, do the development on the property because this was completely trees as you saw in the last video. If you didn't, go check that out because one thing I noticed, man, and I don't try to down talk nobody, but what I noticed on these other YouTube channels, very few people talk about how they get the money to start homesteading or buy a container house or have a off-grid life or whatever it is. It's never really transparent, and I'm not sure if you're interested in doing off-grid or homestead and trying to get out the so-called rat race and just trying to live a more simple life. I'm not sure how you can accomplish that if people are not really transparent and giving you some realistic information. I want to preemphasize, I think that's the word, and let you know in 2019 I lost everything I had. I had my own business, contracting business. I had bought 3 semi trucks 2018. 2 of those were lemons, and unfortunately that caused me to go into bankruptcy. It was not due to my personal financial mismanagement. It's because I purchased some vehicles, they were no good. I spent, on paper alone, I spent $40,000 trying to keep this business up to the point where I was just like, dude, this is not gonna work because I'm just in the hole all the time with these silly ass trucks. So unfortunately, I filed bankruptcy, walked away, moved back with my parents, and my parents live in the Caribbean, in the Virgin Islands, and living there really gave me perspective on, which I had already been there lots of times, but it just gave me a perspective on how did I want to live my life. And the biggest lesson I learned from bankruptcy was, how can you put yourself in a position where you can never lose what you have? You know what I'm saying? Because I was in real estate in my 20s and early 30s, but we sold most of our portfolio. So at the time, I didn't have any real estate. I sold all the real estate, and I was just running my businesses. But after I filed bankruptcy, I realized, okay, I need to have something that no one can ever take away from me because it's paid for in cash. So that was my goal. So as I was working in the islands, I went back to, I was a truck driver in my early 20s. So when I went back to the islands, I was truck driving, working in the port, and just working a regular job, not making any money, making like $15 an hour, at 30 something years old. The island, that's a whole nother topic, but the economical situation down there is quite foolish. So what happened was, one day I had a little accident inside the port, and one of my cousins was working out in Cali. He was working on a cannabis farm in Cali. So after I got into my accident, my mother was like, man, you need to just go there. And I'm originally from Northern California. I'm from East Oakland, California, but my cousin was up in Nevada County. So my mother was just like, man, you just need to go out there and go work with your cousin, because she had already been down there, seen the whole operation, seen the lifestyle, seen how things would happen. So I don't even think it was like a week after I got into that little fender bender, I was in California. So I got there in June. Stayed from June to December, 3 years straight. And that's how I got the money to buy this container house. I got half the money to buy this land. And then in 2023, I was tired of going to Cali. The industry had changed a lot. Anybody that knows that's in that, the prices got all whacked out. Everything went down. So I was like, man, I'm done. I'm done going back and forth. Because I was literally sleeping in a tent, living in California, up in the mountains, you know, a very. I was actually living off grid there, so that's when I even got more introduced to the off grid lifestyle, is being up in California, just living a real simple life. But it was a little rough, you know what I mean? Not something, wasn't ideal, but it definitely humbled you. So on the off season, from January to May, I was in. Uh, well, the first year I went back to the Virgin Islands, but the 2 years after that, I went back to Atlanta because that's where I was originally living at, and was doing my little contracting. I mean, I'd been doing contracting, running a contracting business before, but I was trying to get my feet back off the ground. So, like I said, I got enough money to buy the container house. I got one of my trucks in California I still got. And that really set the baseline. Then I got half the money to buy the land. So when I hit the ground running 2023, when I got back to Atlanta in January, hit the ground running on my contract and shit. And within like 3 months, got a couple more things put up. And then that's when I started looking for property, like in March 2023. And like March, April, that's when I identified this property here. And I closed on this property in May of 2023. And like I said in the last video, this property cost me $25,000. This container house, I bought it from somebody who made it. It cost me $30,000, but I probably put another $15,000 in it. And just being on my grind, man, just was able to facilitate that. But I'm trying to figure out, because I don't want to say too much about the numbers, but I want to kind of give you an insight. I mean, I would say roughly I was probably making between 60 to 80,000, you know, from 2020 to 2022. And then in 2023 I made a killing because I was in Atlanta just working. So I was, you know, getting it stupid. I probably doubled my income that year contracting. And that's what facilitated me to pay for all the development that needed to be done here, buy all the dirt, clear the land, buy these containers I got here, you know, all these other things I had to buy. I mean, that shit, it adds up real quick. Buying the solar, buying it this, buying it that. So, and let me preface this too, because I think this is the most important thing, and it's always been the most important thing, because I actually purchased my first home when I was 22. And the reason I was able to do that, because I was truck driving, and I was in Illinois one day, man, and this dude, he was talking to me. I was at some shipper, and he was just like, man, you know, man, I live out my truck, man. I don't even got no apartment. When I go back home, I just stay with my girl, and I just stack all my money. And like for a couple of days, I was thinking to myself, man, that dude lost it. He ain't got no place to stay. But then when I really started thinking about that over the next couple of weeks, I was like, man, that's actually a genius idea. So at 21, I got rid of my place. And then for a whole year, I'm just living out the truck, stacking. You know what I mean? So, and then in 2022, I believe, or 2000, no, not 22. This is 2000. It's like 2000. I don't know, shit. This like 2011. No, this 2009. I turned 21 in 2008. So yeah, in 2009, I bought my first property at 22, right? Yeah. So I had stacked up 10 G's in that year, and bought my first house. And that always put in perspective to me, and this is the lesson I'm trying to teach you. Man, you got to figure out how to eliminate or get rid of your living expense. And that was one thing about me going to California, working on the farm. I did not have to pay for living. That was not that you got to stay on the property for free. When I was living with my parents, I was paying them for them, because I don't I pay my parents rent every month to stay with them when I was living in the islands. But when I went to Cali, it's just, hey man, you just work, you camping. So ain't nobody charging you for camping because they ain't really supplying you with no real house. You see what I'm saying? So that's when I was able to, all that money I'm making out there every month, because I'm going out there 6 months clearing some decent money, stacking all that up. And then yeah, I do got to use some of that money in the off season, but that's kind of how it work, man. It's just, how do you get rid of your living expenses so you can really stack your paper up, or take a sacrifice and live in a situation? I mean, because even when I went to Atlanta in 2022, I was thinking about getting an apartment, but then I was like kind of in between. Then, you know, I still had the bankruptcy on me. I didn't have no rental income, so I was renting a room. I didn't want to rent a room. And for people that know about Atlanta, I was renting a room off Cleveland Avenue, you know, for like 2 months. And I'm just like, man, you know, but you got to do what you got to do to cut the expenses down, to stack that paper. So that's really the key thing, I think, in accomplishing everything, is how do you get your living expenses down so you really can stack your paper up to really invest to what you really want. Because now I'm in a position, I don't have no rent. All I got is the water bill. I'm semi off grid. I do have city water here, but I don't have power. I got my solar, as y'all done seen, my phone bill, internet, and that's really it, man. You know what I'm saying? Everything else I can buy. That's why I was able to buy that excavator over there. I'm able to buy whatever I want every couple months, because I'm just stacking, working. And then that's the other thing I want to talk to you about is, well, no, I'm going to talk about that in another video, about working and living on the homestead. This is really about how to get the money to buy the homestead. So that's going to be in a different video. But yeah, man, that's basically what it got to be, man. If you really want to get something in life, and I've known this since my 20s, and you really got to make a sacrifice on your living expenses. And I know it's just not as easy for everybody. Everybody's in a different position. I understand, but you got to really figure out how to calculate, because, man, that living expense is like 30% of your income. So how can you cut that chunk out? Even if you could cut out 20%, cut the chunk off, man, and you just putting that shit away. And after a year or two, you got all the money you want. Because I didn't spend, between the house, the land, the this and that, I'm well over 100,000 into this. I don't really keep track no more, but I'm just saying that's all paid for. It's no debt on nothing here. I don't owe nobody for nothing here. Straight paid. But it's staying down, staying on your grind, and figuring out how you can live. And then when I lived in Atlanta, let me tell you this too before I get off this video. When I lived in Atlanta for 2023, I was staying with 2 other dudes in an apartment. So we were splitting rent 3 ways, you know. So I was only paying like $600 a month, you know. And yeah, I didn't want to live with no 2 other dudes and whatever, man. But at the end of the day, man, you gotta, the more you stay down, the more you pick up. The more you stay down, the more you pick up. The more you stay down, the more you pick up. So you got to stay down so you can pick that shit up off the floor, man, and do what you gotta do. Because now I'm cool, man. You know what I'm saying? And even now when I go to Atlanta, I go work, get my money, come back to the house. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, that's how I really was able to afford the homestead, get the money for the homestead. And bankruptcy is the reason I even got into this lifestyle. And on behalf of living in California, working on the farm out there, living off grid, it really just showed me you have to. And if that's if the lifestyle works for you. But I don't want a mortgage. I don't want to be paying everybody every month. I don't want to be paying no extremely high taxes for no people buying a house, taxes high as fuck. They can't afford it. They can't pay to fix nothing. I'm in people's houses every day. They always complaining about the price of this and the price of that. It's like, hey man, you bought the house. I go to a lady's house. Oh well, who pays for that? It's like, sweetie, you own the house, right? So you paying for it. What you mean, who pays for it? Well, you know, I mean, what, you think somebody just gonna pay for something for you? You know what I'm saying? So, man, we just got to get to reality. You got to stay down. You got to get on your grind. And you got to get rid of your living expense if it's possible. And if not, you have to unfortunately get into an uncomfortable situation with your living. Just like I said, I had to stay in the rooming house. I had to stay with 2 other dudes, and don't get me wrong, I'm still partners with them dudes to the day that I stayed with 2023. But as a grown man in my late 30s, I obviously would want to have stayed by myself. But you know, I had to stay all the way down I had to stay down on the ground so I could pick that shit up, man. And that's what you're gonna have to do, man, if you wanna. Unless you just got it like that, and some people do got it like that. Some people making enough money where they can do it all. But hey, man, I was trying to get this done in a short amount of time, so I ain't gonna talk y'all to death, man. I'm in and out, and we gonna come back with another one here soon.